Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Guf Neshama in Parshas Vayakheil P. This parsha, puts together the two mitzvahs that are often mentioned together, Shabbos and Melechas HaMishkan. And we know from in the halachic sense that the whatever is prohibited to do on Shabbos, i.e., we should rest from on Shabbos, is what went into the construction of the Mishkan. So now, referring back to concepts that we have visited before. So first of all, you should know that the relationship between the Mishkan and or the Beis Hamikdash and Shabbos is a Guf Neshama relationship. It's body and soul. Right? Because what we do during the week with our bodies that we are supposed to refrain from doing on Shabbos. There's one reason why Shabbos is called in the Zohar, Yoma de Nishmasin, the day of the soul, because the body's at rest. The body is resting from its bodily activity. And one of the bodily activities that we have to refrain from, whatever went into the construct of the Mishkan. And we explained already back in Parshas Truma, the Mishkan is like our national body, and the Shekhinah that fills it is our national soul. In a similar vein, the Mishkan and Shabbos have a neshama and guf relationship. Shabbos being the day of the soul, where the body is at rest. We know the power of the neshama is amplified, and the Mishkan also is and the Beis Hamikdash is a good model for how we should use our bodies during the week. That just like it was to build something holy, or to do the korbanos, that, although we are allowed to do the Shabbos korbanos on Shabbos, but the regular korbanos of how, if a person, God forbid, did a sin or wanted to donate something, nedava, that didn't, you deceased that from that on Shabbos. Shabbos, you're only allowed to do the avoda of Shabbos in the Beis Hamikdash. So, but the personal stuff that a person wants to take on, that you deceased on from Shabbos. But look at the personal stuff, right? Doing holy, lofty things, building a Mishkan, building a Beis Hamikdash, bringing korbanos, that you take on yourself. Right? So that should set the tone for the bodily activity of the week. Always look for something heavenly to do with your body. On Shabbos, that's all clamped down to release the soul. And that's why on Shabbos we have these tremendous, called Moichin de Gadlus, like a higher intelligence, as the neshama more is unfettered. And we also know the neshama yesera. We have an added level of soul that gets infused in us, and it explains the wonderful experience that Shabbos is. But now there's another point that reflects something that we had just learned this past Monday night in the big series about, and so which we had also, in the big series mentioned earlier, Shabbos, a day of unity, right? And so, the 39 malachos are 39 distinct things. So if you do all 39, you have to bring a separate korban chatzos for each of them. God forbid you did them, unintentionally, joking, right? 39 distinct things. Right, the body is distinct. Their eyes don't do what the ears do, and the ears don't do what the eyes do. The nose doesn't do what the tongue does. Made up of distinct organs, and we explained, the neshama is unified. It's a pure, indivisible spiritual entity. It may be inclusive of a lot of different spiritual dimensions, but it's inclusive in an indivisible way. You can't cut up a neshama, right? It's not a physical creature. And we say in Ha'aras Panim, in God's attribute of revealing and not holding back, everything is in unity. In Hester Panim, which creates the body, things are in disunity. Right? Everything is separate, and things aren't unified. And that's really where evil comes from. It comes in gaps in reality. We fragment reality more and more. When that fragmentation, that schism in that gap created by the schism of disunity is where evil sets in. And there's not much time to talk about this right now. It's something what we'll discuss more in the big series. All right? But even so, as we just learned in the Zohar, just this past Monday night, the body is supposed to bring a little bit of unity to that disparity. So so the body is divisible into 248 different organs. Each one does something different. right, and 365 sinews, but it's one body. So even the body is seeking unity, right? And it gets a higher unity when the neshama settles in it, right? When the neshama leaves and the body's dead, the body decomposes. But the body, while it's intact, brings unity to physicality. And that unity is amplified when it's infused with the unity of the neshama. Right, and Shabbos is a day of unity. That not just we desist from these distinct, different bodily actions, the lamed tes malachos, but even on the day of Shabbos, the concept behind the prohibition of carrying in the public domain from Rosh Hayachid to Rosh Hashanah and not carrying Daled Rosh Hashanah is the idea of unity. Stay with God. Stay in the Rosh Hayachid, the domain of He who is one. Don't go out to the Rabim, right? Be in one domain, the domain of He who is one. And it's a very deep idea that the Maharal speaks about. Okay. So now, so Shabbos, day of unity, and as opposed to the work week, a time of the diversity. The work week, the body is dominant, and we just have to try to use the body for lofty purposes, equivalent to like building a Beis HaMikdash and bringing sacrifices that we take upon ourselves. Good lofty deeds. Shabbos, the day of unity, and we get beyond body, right? And there'll be a ripple effect of the unity of Shabbos upon the body. Right? So now there's a very interesting dialogue, debate between Rebbe, who wrote the Mishnah, and Antoninus. Some one says was Mark Antony. Antoninus, there are a lot of these guys by that name, Anthony. So they were friends. They used to debate together, and Antoninus asked Rebbe, when does the neshama enter the body? So Rebbe said, well, after there's a tzuras of that, after there's a human form, right? Which could happen after 40 days of conception. That's when the neshama settles in, right? And Antoninus argued and said, I don't think that's true. Take a dead piece of meat. It can't go for 3 days without stinking and decomposing. I say the neshama enters the body at conception. So now we know from ideas that we shared during the major series, already at the very beginning of the series, that Antoninus is dead wrong, and Rebbe is 100% right, because we learned, right, that you don't need a neshama to be biochemically alive, right? Animals don't have a neshama; they're perfectly biochemically alive. I can't leave a tomato that's been cut already outside of the fridge for 3 days without it rotting. Does that mean that when the tomato is growing, it has a neshama? Of course not. And whereas Rebbe was actually paralleling the story of the Genesis. Hashem first made man's body and then infused the body with a soul. So, but the Gemara makes it sound like Antoninus got the last word. Even though I just gave you on pure logic, Rebbe was right, Antoninus was dead wrong. But the truth is like this, that Antoninus inadvertently said something correct, even though the reason why he was speaking, because in his mind, his non-Jewish mind, he thought that all you need a neshama for is to be alive. So, of course, you need it from conception. And we explained in our series, no, you don't need a neshama to be alive. You need a neshama to be heavenly, huh? And to have a relationship with God, to cling to God, to have prophecy, to understand the secrets of the Torah. You don't need a neshama to be alive. That was his error, right? But he inadvertently said something correct. And it's reflected also in this week's parsha, right? Last week's parsha, Hashem tells Moshe about Shabbos. And then he commands them also to build the Mishkan. And Rashi's, I take that back. Reverse. Last week's parsha, Hashem finished off the discussion of the construction of the Mishkan, right? Right. Kisitsa still had some straggling points about things that still had to be done in the Mishkan, and then he went into Shmira Shabbos. And Rashi says, put the two together to teach you, even though you want to build the Mishkan very, very badly, don't do it on Shabbos, right? Because what's the contrary of the Mishkan is exactly what's prohibited on Shabbos. And you learn that just fine by the juxtaposition of putting the building of the Mishkan first and Shabbos right after. But in this week's parsha, So what does it say? Vayakheil Moshe, he gathered everyone together. And he told them about Shabbos. And then he went into recapping everything that the Torah had said in Truma, Tetzaveh, and Kisisa. Right? And Rashi says to put Shabbos first. He told them about Shabbos first to teach you that the building the Mishkan is not Docha Shabbos. We don't need to put the Mishkan first to derive that message. Just putting them together, even with the Mishkan first and mentioning Shabbos afterwards, as per last week's Parsha, Rashi says just putting them together teaches us that message. You don't have to put Shabbos first. Rashi puts the emphasis that in Parshas Vayakheil put Shabbos first. And also Vayakheil, he gathered them all together and told them about Shabbos. An amazing idea. So it's a very deep idea, but we are committed to keeping this forum, under a quarter of an hour as best as we can. So please think about carefully what I'm about to share with you. All right. Before the sin of the golden calf, which is the context of what I quoted from last week's Parsha, build the Mishkan, finishing off details of Mishkan, and then keep Shabbos, then came the sin of the golden calf. Right? When the body was less tainted, right? So good. So even if it's in pieces, the body's made up of pieces, it's easy to fit the pieces together. When the pieces are selfish, they tend to stay apart. Like the good pieces are easy to glue together. They fit together. There's a harmony. So even if it's assembly required, the assembly is easy when the components are pure. They fit together. It's easy with minimal work to attain the harmony. Bricks that are symmetrical are easy to cement together. If they're crooked and they're not, they're not perfectly squared, then it becomes challenging, right? When the body was pure, it was easy to fit the pieces together. And so you build the body, and then Shabbos comes as the capstone, like the neshama that sits on that body. When Shabbos comes, it's like, finishing off the week. It's like the 6 days of the week are the body, and the Shabbos is the soul. And that's the unifying soul. That's how we say during the 6 weeks, Hayom Yom Rishon B'Shabbos, Hayom Yom Sheni B'Shabbos, first day in Shabbos, second day in Shabbos. All the days are connected by Shabbos. It's the unifying soul of the week. We build the body, like in the story of Adam. Hashem built his body, pulled the pieces together, and then the soul came in as the 6 days of activity. It's like building the body of the week, and all those days the body is working. And on the 7th day is like the neshama that fills. That's the neshama of the week, right? And that's the order that Adam was created in, and that's the simple order. But that's all when physicality is pure. It's easy to build a body, and then in that assembled body, we unified with a little bit of challenge, but not so bad, not insurmountable. And the neshama settles in and brings the spiritual unity that permeates all of it. Right? What if the body's tainted? What if the body is tainted? The pieces don't fit together. We're fragmented with evil inclination, and we have conflicting evil inclinations. We have conflicts of interest between ourselves and God, and even conflicting interests even between ourselves. There's our greed, there's our lust, and the balagan. How do you fit anything together to begin with? Right? So sometimes you got to tap into Shabbos ahead of the time. Listen to what the Pasuk says. Vayakheil Moshe, he gathered people together. He brought the pieces together by telling them Shabbos. We have to actually find a way to tap into Shabbos already before we begin our week, right? We need to draw in some of that power to make some unity amongst the fragmentation. So as at the end of the week, with the power of the Shabbos that came before, by the end of the week, we pulled the pieces together to make a body for the next Shabbos to settle in. That's the secret of what Chazal say. If Am Yisrael only keep 2 Shabbosos, it would immediately be redeemed. Why 2? What does the second one do that the first one can't? Says Rav Simcha Bunim of Pershischa, this very point, we're tainted. To have a really good Shabbos, you have to have a really good week that precedes it. Right? During the week, you're building the body that the Shabbos is the neshama of. Right? You got to pull the pieces together. You got to have a really good week of pulling the piece together and building a holy body for the Shabbos to settle in. But you can't have a good week pulling the piece together if you don't tap into Shabbos beforehand. That's why you need two Shabboses. And the idea is two Shabboses consecutively. You have the first Shabbos that gives power to the upcoming week. We have to extend that power into the week, have a good week where we find some spirituality and some a unifying factor. Kol ma'asecha, all the different actions, yiu l'shem shamayim. We draw that from the Shabbos that's behind us, right? And then we have a good week, and after a good week, Shabbos settles in like it's supposed to, like the neshama mamish settling and inhabiting a body. So before the sin of the golden calf, we were pure, right? And we could just pull the pieces together. And then Shabbos settles in like the soul settles into the body that has been pulled together like God assembled the body of Adam. And then the Neshama came in. We're tainted now. We can't even pull the pieces together to make a good Jewish body. We need Shabbos first to make Vayakheil, to make a certain basic unity within physicality, to assemble the body that the next Shabbos really comes in stark, like it's supposed to. And that's where Antonius inadvertently said something correct. Right? That's why Rebbe didn't argue further. Right? Because he said, we have to tap into the power of the neshama from the get-go. We can't just build the body first and let the neshama settle in, because the body's tainted. The pieces will never fit together properly to begin with. We have to tap into the power of the neshama already from the beginning, from the very beginning, right? To assemble the Tselem Elokim in the first place, which afterwards the neshama settles in properly. So Antoninus wasn't wrong, but not for any reason that he was conscious of. Yes, you need to tap into the power of the neshama ahead of time. Like we need last week's Shabbos to have a good week this week, right? So also the fetus needs some power of the neshama from the get-go to build a proper Tselem Elokim body that the neshama could then settle in and it get integrated with. Okay? Very deep idea. We're slightly over time. Let me just say that with this we understand what the Chovas HaTalmidim, and we will be quoting from him extensively as the big series progresses. They say, he's all about getting in touch with your soul, and he writes in his monumental introduction, we have to start this with kids already. Don't say, being a mature adult, and when we have mature adult, give them a little bit of background in Kabbalah, and then work on feeling the soul. It's got to be from childhood. We already got to start having the kids feel their souls. Otherwise, they won't mature properly. They won't build their body. They won't build their regular biochemical intelligence properly in a way that could be a seat for the neshama to settle in. We have to start this avoda of feeling the neshama already with kids on whatever level they're capable. Otherwise, they won't mature properly in the first place to be able to later receive get it really integrate with their neshama. Right? So with this, we'll end that this movement of Guf Neshama. It's not just an academic series. This is a movement, my friends. I'm asking you all get involved in the material. Send us people to train. We're looking to train educators and teach people how to get in touch with their neshama. And like we said, there's so much dirt in our construct and in the world around us that we can't wait for later to get in touch with our neshama, because we'll never be ready. We'll never have constructed our biochemical selves correctly to get integrated with our neshama if we don't get a little taste of being in touch with our neshama already from now. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbat.